Okay, I think we're all set to get going. So, welcome everyone to the June 15th, 2015 meeting of the Merrimack Conservation Commission. I just have a few announcements. Bob Croati has decided not to be reappointed to his position as an alternate. So, I know we haven't seen Bob in quite some time, but he did pay attention and he responded and said that he doesn't plan to continue. So, all right, we have only one meeting in July, and that is July the 20th. So just so that you're aware of that. That means that items for that agenda have to be submitted 10 days prior to that, so probably by the 10th of July. So at our next meeting, and I'll talk about more of that coming up, we'll be looking for appointments to our subcommittees. So if anyone's interested in participating in our subcommittees, they should let us know shortly. As well as we have openings for alternate members here on the Conservation Commission. Plus, Matt Kieran's position is also open on the commission. So I suspect he's going to apply for reappointment.
Okay. We're like, what are you telling us?
But technically his position's open if someone wanted to jump in. So tonight Matt and Jody are both excused. So anyone have any other announcements that they'd like to share now? All right. So then we go to public comment. Jay, you want to join us? You do have to sign our sheet for us. And make sure your little green light is really bright.
Okay. Jay Francis, Clara Drive here in Merrimack. I just wanted to follow up on the flags at Horse Hill. I did pay attention as I was mountain biking through there. I found there were 3 flags sitting at signpost 11, which is right on the loop trail, and I did check part of the area that Matt had suggested, and I didn't see any others. So it looks like someone either maybe had collected some and stuck them in one place, or maybe that was the only ones that were there. Mm-hmm. And then as far as beaver activity, I haven't seen any right in my neighborhood, but Lawrence Road, when you go on the B&M Railroad Trail between Lawrence Road and Bedford Road, I think this technically might be by the time you hit Bedford, but there's beavers that are actually building up over the railroad trail. The railroad, are you familiar? Yeah, they're actually building up, and it's crossing onto the trail now. I can follow up with you later if you want to give you a map location or something.
I think that I haven't walked down there for a while.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that was it. Those are my 2. It's closer to the Bedford Road side, so that's why I think it might be more in the Bedford side. It's definitely in the wetland area, where there's wetlands on both sides.
Right. God, I haven't walked down that road in probably 15 years.
Okay.
I'm thinking about it now. I haven't walked down there in a long time.
Yeah. It's definitely this year that's new, and it seems to be growing a little bit each time I go out there. So that's it.
All right, great. Thank you.
Yeah. If you have your camera, you have your phone with your camera. If you turn on your geolocation and take a picture of it. Okay. Sure. It'll give me the exact.
I've got my running watch. I did a marker on it, so I need the GPS for that.
If you have the coordinates, just blast them to me.
I'll send them to you.
Perfect.
Okay.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So I believe that's all the public comment we'll get tonight. Knocking the doors down. We have no statutory or advisory business. We have no appointments tonight. So that takes us to old business and the Ned pipeline. So what I wanted to do was spend a few minutes tonight, and I know we have scoping meetings coming, at least we're anticipating them. We've kind of talked about them off and on now for the last few months in our meetings. I was curious, do we want to, and I'll throw out a few different ideas, do we want to kind of break up some of the things that we might want to cover in a scoping meeting and have someone be the champion for those, pull those questions or comments together? Do we want a scoping meeting czar, someone who's willing to accept responsibility for putting it all together and coordinating, and then potentially leading the conversation for the commission? Or would you rather we just kind of named off a bunch of different things and started collecting, kind of like what we've been doing before, but without any real set goal in mind? Because we obviously don't have a date yet, I don't believe, right? Nothing's come through the filings? Okay. All right. So what are your thoughts?
I personally like the idea of having a point, but I'm not able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in the middle of cross season and everything else, so I'm out straight at the moment.
I'm happy to be a point person, but I'm not sure I want to be the person speaking at the scoping meeting specifically, so I can help coordinate whatever we need to do leading up to that point.
Okay. Mike, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be good to have one person bring the thoughts together, but I mean, we haven't come up with a definite list of what we want to see in the scoping meeting yet. Yeah, and then the commission is just going to be part of what the town will be presenting, or right. Yeah, and yeah, I'd be glad to help with that, or.
Well, yeah, and I'm not even sure it's part of the town presenting it. I mean, we may end up just being one other person in line to the podium, so.
Yeah, how will that work? Are they, no idea?
No idea. So my understanding is I kind of poked around a little bit, is that they'll start off by explaining the project a little bit, explaining the process a little bit, maybe explain the purpose of the meeting and what kind of input they're looking for to try and at least bound the comments that get stated. So here's a few things that I pulled right off their own FAQ, but scoping meetings, which are sponsored by FERC, are utilized by staff to identify relevant issues of major certificate projects pursuant to NEPA. That's the NEPA. For those of you not familiar, you can Google the acronym. Scoping is in the process of defining and refining the scope of an environmental impact statement or environmental assessment and the alternates to be investigated. The scoping process is one of the opportunities for public involvement. Affected property owners and other stakeholders can provide detailed comments about issues pertaining to their properties. For example, stakeholders can provide information on sensitive environmental features in the project area, suggest alternatives to be evaluated, or help identify construction constraints. Then it goes on to say that it's done during the pre-filing process. They're open to the public and are structured for people to make statements to the FERC staff about the project. FERC staff describes the environmental review process. And then further down it says, one of the main purposes of a formal scoping meeting is so the members of the public get an opportunity to speak their concerns. There is a stenographer involved, and transcripts are made available through the e-library system. So I did poke around a little bit looking for scoping for other projects and stuff like that, and one of them I looked at had a number of people expressing concern about the need for the project, and I kind of thought that was a little not what I was expecting to see. But then they also got into, well, it's going to do this on my property, it could do that, or can they avoid this? And at that point I said, okay, it's probably more like what I figured. So go ahead.
The environmental impact study might dictate a few things that we put into that,
Yeah, so FERC is required to create either one of those things, an environmental assessment or an environmental impact statement.
Maybe the one we're having done.
I'm not sure they've announced which version they're going to do for us.
Yeah, I meant
what we're doing.
We're
We're doing one as well, right.
But I mean, when that's done, that might show us a couple of things that we need to put in there.
Oh, I suspect it will.
Yeah.
So, and we could talk a little bit more about Jeff's progress, and then later on we get in the meeting. So I don't think it's very confined as to what we can comment on. So I was thinking about some different things that we may want to consider doing research on, or maybe utilizing other people's research for. Let's leverage what's out there. Let's not create new content if we don't have to. But so I'm going to just randomly shoot off a few things. Wetland mitigation. We're going to have, if there are wetland impacts, there'll need to be wetland mitigation, and we might want to ask how or whose rules for mitigation would be utilized. I think that would be an appropriate question, but I think at the same time we want to say we prefer that this be the process for wetland mitigation. I don't know, I'm not going to tell you today what that is, but I think that's one of the things we want to look into is what kind of wetland mitigation process do we want to ask FERC to impose upon Tennessee Gas. Okay? It may just be the DES process following wetland rules 900 to 925 or something. I mean, that may be as simple as we want to call it. In fact, I think utilizing someone else's process or whatever would be a good thing to do, as opposed to dictating a new process.
Yeah, particularly because I think that would probably be a little bit more enforceable.
Correct, right. And it may end up being more palatable as well, especially since they've been doing these things for a while now. But what I'm concerned about with wetlands and wetlands processes, they may want to utilize something that they've done somewhere else and say, well, that meets the spirit. Well, I'm thinking we want to be very specific. That way our inspectors are used to seeing a certain way and everything else. So, as well as it may give us opportunities for mitigation dollars that we can utilize in other places. I think it's hitting the unit on the outside of the window.
I thought that was Jay smashing his keyboard.
I did too. And he wasn't typing when I looked up.
So,
Now,
No, there's a lot of banging.
now say their work interfered with,
Yeah, you're right. We believe you.
like, say their work interfered with like a rare species habitat or something like that. I mean, part of that mitigation, could it be like to restore some other kind of area for that habitat or for that?
well, right, yeah, absolutely. Yep. Yep. If it's a rare plant species or something like that, we might want to say, well, you either have to avoid this or move it, or I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that's something you can do, right? Right.
I'm saying it's growing in one spot for a reason. I think
Right.
moving it would be.
You would think that.
But I mean,
Yeah.
if they're going through there and wrecking it, I mean, all right, I mean, how do you restore that?
Right, you don't.
Yeah.
You've lost it.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, if it's in the direct way,
Yeah.
your next best thing is to move it, right?
Or
If-
don't go there at all.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
That's true.
Bingo.
You gotta go chain yourself down to it.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's kind of one of the areas. Another area is fire protection. What kind of things do we want to have in place to help minimize the impact of a blowtorch in a forest fire? So, if there is things you could do. So, I know I'm a little dramatic when I say blowtorch, but it would be looking just like one.
No,
Well,
it's
something
actually
just-
minimizing, I
Yeah.
think.
Something
Yeah.
just happened in Texas, but I'm a little behind in my emails and I hadn't had a chance to look for it, but I saw it on the news this morning.
Yeah?
There was an explosion in Texas. Nobody got hurt, but,
that's a
they
good
showed the
thing.
flames
Yeah.
and they diverted the gas in order to shut it off.
Now, do they determine in the scoping meeting, like, what a homeowner is gonna get? Like, if they're crossing, if their property's being crossed?
What they're going to get for what
Like,
compensation?
how is that? Yeah,
No.
no.
No, but a homeowner could say, the proposed route goes right through my well. I prefer they rerouted this way. So, or my pool, my in-ground pool, So, and FERC can impose constraints on what Tennessee does, so. Another thing, we may want to comment on where the pigs stations are going to be, the ins and outs or relief valves or anything else like that. I'm not sure, right now I don't think they've identified any of those features yet as to where they're going to be located, but we may want to provide comments on those.
My understanding is in their next filing, I believe it's due in July, they'll be identifying those types of structures and ins and outs of it,
Yeah, that would be very helpful to have adequate scoping comments.
right?
You know. So, you know, we may be concerned about what kind of chemicals and other things that are done during the construction process and how they're managed and how a spill would be managed and stuff like that. And we may want to comment on that. Again, I just have random thoughts. You get into blasting, because there will have to be some sort of level of blasting or at least drilling and all that stuff going on. So I know the town probably has some of the more stricter blasting regulations than I've seen in other places. So we may want to specify that our own regulations be used within the borders of our town. But we can always confirm that we believe that's the case. I mean, there's no reason why in our research that we don't contact Chief Courier of the fire department and get his thoughts on that to confirm. Even though I suspect the town will make their own comments, there's no reason why we should not. We shouldn't rely on someone else to make a comment that we think is appropriate. So, yeah, and then as we learn more about our own properties, there's a whole host of wildlife and habitat things that we probably will come across. So we may want to get into the whole horizontal drilling process, you know, for going under the rivers and stuff like that. We may want to specify a process for a particular area of our property as well. So, don't know, like getting under Long Pond. So. I'm not sure we'll be completely successful with that water body, but you know, we may want to make that request. I don't know enough about it to say yes or no to that, so that's why I think we ought to utilize some of the time we have right now to dig into some of this or ask for expert opinions from some folks. When it comes to our own wildlife and habitats and wetlands that we know about, we'll get all that data from Jeff. So he's doing that for us on our own properties, and he will be making suggestions on what the impact would be to the, you know, to the red robin or the whatever else species he finds of interest. So, and they're looking at all the species from insects to birds to mammals to reptiles to amphibians, you know. So, and again, his work is going to be good for us even beyond this project.
Right.
So they're not just looking within the corridor. So if you want to be the driver of this, you may want to ask one of the other members to kind of research one of those areas or suggest others and stuff like that.
So if I could just take a day to, I want to do a little research on scoping meetings as well.
Yeah.
Get some ideas of what those areas are in addition to what you've got here, and then I'll message the group and we can divide and conquer that way, if that's all right.
So what we need to do, because we're a public body, is to avoid having a conversation over email. Okay, an exchange that you might have if you were part of a private group or something like that. So what would be good, what's appropriate for email is to, especially when you send it to everyone, you should realize, number one, it could be a public document. It could be requested under the right to know law. So just be aware of that. Utilize your town email for these kinds of activities. I think you now have a town email address. Have you played with that?
It's not usable yet from my understanding, but I'll check on that.
Okay, all right. Yeah, because it's a good way to segregate your email, and you may want to train yourself to utilize your town email for this body that you're part of, okay? And if you've got folks, friends that are involved and stuff like that, family and whatever, ask them when you think it's commission related to send it to that email address. That email does get archived and stored. So if someone was to make a request and wanted every email from Tim Tenhave related to the pipeline, they could ask for it. But getting back to the use of the email, though, what it would be great for us, you could say, this is what I've uncovered, and be prepared to discuss it at our next meeting. Or you could say, I need help with the following items, and feel free to contact me if you have some thoughts, if any of those are there. And then what I'd like you to do is at our meeting where we discuss things, say, okay, between the two meetings, I put out this information, and Cindy agreed to take a look at the impacts for the such and such, for the blasting. Okay, I'll just as an example. Okay, and that way we're as transparent as we can. Okay.
Mhm.
So, and that's really the whole idea of it. You know, we are acting in the, we're part of the public, we're acting in the good faith of the public, and we want to keep the public informed if they choose to be informed. Not everyone pays attention to our meetings or our minutes, but, and things that aren't, they may not think are relevant today, in 3 months they may think it's relevant and want to go back and have that opportunity to look, so. But again, I don't want to get into an email exchange, okay? If you and Cindy are working together on one piece, just pick up the phone and have a conversation about it, okay? And then report on what you guys discovered or decided, okay? If it's something that requires a vote of the commission, obviously that has to wait for a public meeting, okay? Makes sense? So, I think Cindy could probably share with you a bunch of stuff that came out of the roast meeting, different ideas, way back when. You know, I think it hit on some of the items I talked about, but we'll learn more about our vernal pools, which apparently we have more than 40 of them on Horse Hill, which is quite interesting. You know, we may want to ask about if we know of certain invasive plants within the pathway that they're proposing, we may want to specify how those plants are dealt with. First, you know, that's so, but yeah.
Didn't you mention, Cindy, something about best practices?
Cindy sent that out, so.
And, you know, methods and like requesting that Kinder Morgan use the best possible practices when they run the pipeline through Merrimack. Or, wasn't it one of your emails? Like something?
Maybe. I don't remember.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I thought I remember reading
Well, I
that.
think in the roast meetings, one of the comments was that we asked them to use the New Hampshire method of wetlands assessment.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, maybe that's what you were thinking of. Maybe not. Okay. I'll see if I can.
Is that nice? I thought it was an excellent idea. I mean, make sure, obviously, that they're gonna that we hold them to the highest standards
Right.
possible
Mm-hmm.
if they're gonna run anything through here.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I didn't announce it, but we started the meeting at 6:33 p.m., according to Mickey on my wrist here, so. Yeah, you can't take life too seriously. So. We may even have archaeological things that we're concerned about. I do know that it's proposed to go through the Old Kings Highway. So we may want to specify when they're working in that area that they dig differently, you know, because they may uncover something, because that highway goes way back to the 1600s. So yeah, that's just, I didn't think that one. So,
That's at Horse Hill too, isn't
you know, and if it goes to the other side, we may end up having conflicts with the Spalding Foundation and other things that are out on Horse Hill. So, so yeah. So, but we'll learn more about that when they make their July filing, assuming they're on schedule. So, but given that they're not proposing an update until July, it probably is reasonable to think the scoping meetings won't happen until August at the earliest, I would think.
I would hope not.
Yeah, which will allow us at least one more meeting in order to get better coordinated, if not more than one, because we meet twice in August anyways. So, and then only once in September because of the holiday.
Oh,
So, which we can always add a meeting. I mean, that's not an issue. So I just need at least 24 hours notice. So.
Are you just trying to record the items for this right here?
No, I'm just taking notes for myself.
Okay.
Am I writing too much?
No,
Or like-
I'm just saying. No, I mean, because Tim's rattled off, like, I have a bunch of things written down. Tim's rattled off 5 things that I didn't really match up. And instead of just talking about them, I figured I would just type them up and send them to you so we're all in one spot.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah, and you know, I suspect our minutes
Yep.
will have some of this
Yep.
reflected.
Yep.
You know.
I just want,
Yeah,
you
go
brought up
ahead.
some good points. I just want to just keep up so it's roundtable, because
Mhm.
something, you
Yeah.
know, you said may trigger something or vice
Right,
versa.
absolutely.
You know, because a couple places we overlapped, you talked about fire, but I'm not even before we get to that point, if there's any kind of issue, I'd like to know what or evacuation plans. I mean, when they put Seabrook Station up, they spent thousands of dollars creating evacuation plans and road evacuation plans for people, getting people out if there's a potential problem. We get a high pressure 36-inch line. Even if there's not a fire, just a leak, that's still a deadly gas
Mhm.
in its own. And it's heavier than air. It's going to, you know, it doesn't really off gas into the atmosphere. It's going to stick around for a while.
So that's like adding resident protection with fire protection, kind of.
Well, it's not just fire, but what's the notification procedure? Who's responsible for it? And what's the escape plan? What are they going to do? How do they tell people? You can't. It's not like you get, if you're in the middle of methane, if you're in the middle of a natural gas cloud, you're not going to go start your car,
Yeah.
right? So how do you get out of there? What do you do?
Right.
You know, what's the plan? And how do we notify people? What's going to happen? You know, there's, you know, is there a, we gonna put a big klystron up in town somewhere? Or, you know, everyone run. What's the plan?
Mhm.
So those are, and I just think with, you know, someone's responsible for those notification procedures, someone's responsible for making the evacuation plan, and then there's got to be some kind of test to make sure it works. Which is, so it's gonna, you know, even then on the end of that, the pipeline, the path is obviously is not really set, so there's gonna be potential for people to be dead-ended down a street. You know, if the path is here and the street's a dead end, you know, they can't get across it.
Oh, correct, right?
You know, so
Yeah.
now what do we do? How do those people get out of there?
That's a great point.
So there's a lot of things that I think that there's some responsibility that we need to be putting in the scope of meetings. So these are concerns. They're viable.
Gage, you brought up a good point that Amherst has requested that they avoid all cul-de-sac neighborhoods where there's only one
Right, yeah.
means
That's
of,
perfect, yeah.
you know, egress. So that's the type of, those are the type of requests that I'm hoping the town council will make at some point. I don't know if they will, but that thought has been given by other towns
Yeah.
for that very reason.
Okay, well, let's say if it's gonna be, could be in our list, if we're gonna give this up to the town council or
Yeah.
give our own, and either
Right,
way,
that
it's
could
either
be
way,
on our
it needs to be
It
on the
should
list,
be,
yeah.
yeah.
You were talking about chemicals, but more, you go back and look at some of the Kinder Morgan history, there's a little controversy as to what herbicides they're using to keeping the pathways clear.
Right.
Certainly if they're gonna be over some of our water table and over through our ponds, you know, we have a reason to need to know what they're using in the herbicides and have, I would think, some authority to say, yeah, you can or cannot use that.
Mhm.
I think we're doing the same thing to our own townsfolks and our own DPW and stuff, so.
Right. Yeah, well, just to take off on that thought, we may want to dictate that if they're doing mowing like the public service does, that we request that they only do that during the winter months when the ground is frozen, which would avoid amphibians and other little critters from being out on the ground when that's happening.
Yep.
And maybe even allow the snow cover to give a blanket effect as they're doing it. So that's something that I know we've requested of PSNH for their current activities, and the last couple of times they've cut during winter months. So, which may actually be easier to move their equipment through that because it kind of rides over the top of it. So I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. So.
And I don't know if we'll be able to find out what exactly is going through the pipe. You know, I mean, they talk about scenting it before, you know. I don't know whether that's going to happen, but I was reading something that
I would hope so.
if,
Yeah.
yeah, but you know, so what is going to be, how are they going to put the scent in there, and are there going to be other chemicals? But I was reading something that supposedly that if there's a mix and it's considered like a trade secret, that they won't tell you what is actually going through the pipe.
I've heard the same.
You heard that? Yeah. So I don't know if there could be
A mix of
A
what?
mix of fuel or a mix of odorant?
even with the
Mercaptan
fuel.
is a,
Even
oh,
with the fuel.
okay, so it's a mix of the actual fuel in the
Yeah.
pipe.
Mhm.
Yeah, because we talk about this as being a gas line, and they're talking about it being a transmission medium. And they can put through it whatever it'll support, whether it be natural gas or oil or whatever. I mean,
you would think those would have different compressor station requirements.
yeah, but I mean, they valve them off and use them for storage, and they do a lot of unique stuff apparently. So,
Well, I have read where they have shut down lines and left the gas on the line for a while because they had to do maintenance on a compressor station. They just shut things off, and whatever in the system stays there until they turn it back on again. So, and they've had lots of issues with releases around compressor stations. So, which means that there's methane gas or whatever it is floating around.
yeah, which is a far more dangerous greenhouse gas than CO2. So,
yeah. I drove by one of their compressor stations when I was away from the last meeting, one of the ones in New York. So,
was it running?
it was running, but it was raining when we went by,
Yeah.
so we had all the windows up. So
They're not
I
quiet.
didn't really realize what it was until I got past it and I saw a sign, Tennessee Gas Pipeline Compressor Station, and I forget the town. I've got it written down because all of a sudden I went, oh wow, and I whipped out my cell phone and reached around and took a picture of it.
You're driving, yeah, right.
I wasn't driving.
Okay, good. Yeah.
So I did get a better picture of it on the way back home too.
Oh, okay, okay.
All right, so just real quick, I'll continue on. I have some questions about the security. I mean, these are an open pipe. We've got a lot of, I can't believe we'd have anything unusual, but it looks to me like some targets, a big structure. I mean, we have the big water tower. Where do the kids go hang out? Up at the water tower. Yeah. There's a big pipe. Where are they going? On the other side of the pipe. There's going to be activity near it. I think I'm curious as to what they're going to do to keep it secure. How do they monitor what it is? How do they monitor leaks? How do they monitor what's going through it and what's going on around it? So
I mean, Christmas Eve at the outlet mall, someone does a terrorist activity, right?
Okay, yeah, that would be a. Wasn't going to quite go there, but
Sorry, I made the suggestion.
No, I just was going to let people think that up on their own. But you brought it up. That's good.
Well, those kinds of things have been spoken about. So.
Yeah. So, obviously, like you talked about going, along Long Pond, going under Long Pond. It's like I'd like to know what the alternatives to open wet trench are, because that's their typical modus operandi to get across wetlands. Is, just bury it. It's going to be just below the water line. And it just doesn't seem like a very smart plan for me, but whatever.
Well, it's unacceptable.
Well,
that's what we tell them. It's unacceptable.
doesn't mean they have to listen to us.
No, but
Right, so
we can at least.
But
I just like to know what the alternatives are,
So saying it's unacceptable is one thing. Saying why it's unacceptable would be more helpful.
Right.
You know what I
Yes,
mean?
I agree.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Saying, hey, I'm against the pipeline, but not saying why doesn't help a whole lot. So it just makes you one of the many, right?
we're not unusual in the fact that they're crossing a lot of our water tables. I'd like to know if they're going to do baseline testing prior to any construction activities, and then who's going to monitor it after construction activities are over. So there should be a length of time, a year or two or something like that, to prove that the pipeline hasn't had any negative impact on our water table or in the vernal pools or other water crossings it's got.
And we can request that. I mean, they say, like in the roast meetings, request
I think the
anything.
village district would definitely be.
So
Right,
we
but
want you to do this testing
that's
at
a
this
good
time.
I mean, but they're gonna test like they normally do. But if who's gonna test the vernal pools? Who's gonna test all the other water crossings? Who's gonna test everything else that they've crossed? And who's responsible to pay
I
for
thought
that?
you were just talking about ground, town water, but you're
Well,
talking
no, but
about
I mean,
water bodies.
We have a lot of surface water.
Yeah.
And it ultimately ends up
in
the groundwater. So who's
Right.
testing?
yeah.
Who's
Good
testing
point.
the whole lot of it? And who's responsible for it is really, because that's not going to be a for no test. You don't just take a water sample and, oh yeah, the whole pond's good. Next year we'll test it again. That's not really doesn't really work very well. Structure the compressor stations. You bring up, but I wonder who's going to monitor access to those. I mean, how often do they need to go in there? We have sections of Horse Hill we don't allow vehicles in there. We're going to let them. They're just going to drive a truck in there and
Right.
go do whatever work they need to work. I just like to know what's going on. And cutting back to your earlier thing about fluids and stuff, but construction debris, I mean, you get heavy equipment in there, backhoes and things like that. They drop grease, they drop oil. I mean, the track machine is lubed up all underneath. I mean, who's going to be monitoring that type of stuff as they're going through wetlands and going through the forest? I mean, we've got transmission lines, one thing, but they're really disrupting the ground. So those are mine. That
Okay.
All my points have been covered.
Is this for Christie?
Yeah, I think you emailed that already once. Right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
so-
but I didn't know if this was just.
Yeah, in case you'd
She
like
can
to
have
take
it.
a look
Okay.
at it, or you can forward the email to her at some point.
Okay. I didn't want to take your
Yeah.
forward them all at
paper.
once.
Forward them all at once now.
Bing, 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 bing.
I know.
You'll be able to hold on to your phone and be like,
Yeah, I know.
All right, so, anything more on this item?
Not specifically on scoping meetings, but
Yeah.
on the NED pipeline.
Okay, yeah.
Have we heard back, or has anything happened since our previous meeting on the surveying of the property?
So last I know, they have not reached an agreement yet for surveying on the property. I believe Tennessee came back and didn't approve of one of the changes we suggested around review or something like that. So as far as I know, it's still happening, still going back and forth.
'Cause I do know they've been in Merrimack and they have surveyed some corporate properties.
Okay.
What happens with the properties where they're denied, where the people deny them access? I mean, they're gonna have to be going through those properties at some point anyway. I mean,
Well,
what
I
happens?
believe they use their aerials that they took and other GIS mapping or whatever else is available to make a best guess. Right?
how are they taking areas of private property?
How are they taking aerials? Google does it all the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just seems odd that we weren't allowed to do it.
Well, you can look at live maps. It's,
Yeah, I know. I'm just thinking. Because we were not allowed to do it when we did the Beaver study. We weren't allowed to go over people's. Maybe that was just that company themselves who weren't allowed to do it.
they had a policy for that, maybe.
Right.
I can
to-
see you
to
wanting a
avoid
drone
conflict.
now.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah.
Mike, see out the window again.
Yeah.
I have to look into that. Because I know they didn't. They wouldn't. They were not going over private property. They were staying only in
Mhm.
town property. So I just assumed that was a decreed thing from a federal thing, not their own. Which
Not
it
that
may
I'm
be. I
aware
don't
of.
know.
As far as I know, they did do their own aerial flights.
Yeah.
Right?
That's what I'm aware of
Right?
too.
Yeah, I don't think anyone, yeah. So. Yeah, okay. Anything else? Okay. All right, so then we'll move on to the next agenda item. So that takes us to the Beaver management policy. So what we have is we had a report done by our consultant. We had a kind of a, I forget the right term for it is, we had a matrix or a kind of a method to follow.
Yeah, it's in the
It's in the report, yeah,
in the
section
report.
4 or something like that, yep.
Yeah.
On what we want to do. But what I want to do is get to the point where we can present something to the town council and say, this is the policy we want the town to move forward with, as opposed to the one that's currently in place. So do we think what's in that chapter is sufficient? I don't know.
Well, I sent that out a while ago. We sent that out prior to the whole plan.
Mhm.
So I mean, we all
Yeah.
look at it and have comments. I don't know. I didn't get any comments back, but
This is the long one.
no. Well, this is the full plan.
That was
But
pretty thorough.
The
Oh, this one.
I don't, yeah, I
Oh,
only have a
is
few
this-
copies.
Okay, this is without the flow charts in it.
Yeah, this is without the flow charts. This is before the one that made it in the final report.
Okay, so this is just the one without the flow, just the words without the flow chart, so, in the flow chart section, in that one section, there's some accompanying flow charts. I've been back and forth with GZ about this a couple times, without, changing it.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I think it's a little wordy. I think we need to have something more flow chart based for the departments to use.
Yeah.
I don't think they're gonna be trying to read through it and interpret it. They wanna go, okay, this is what I do here.
Right, here's a decision point, I go this way.
Yeah, here's the flow chart, I did this, bang, that's what I do.
Okay.
So, I like this as set up because it gives you some options, it gives you something to think about, but I think we're gonna wanna take that and pull out of it what we want people to do,
Mm-hmm.
the different departments to do.
Okay.
So, we can use it as the baseline for our management plan, or, I don't know. It's up-
Right, so again, what I'd like to do is at least figure out what is our plan to get to a policy that we bring to the
Right.
town council for approval. So we have, we have something in the final report. You don't believe it's where we want it to be, and,
I like the data, I just don't think I don't think we can pull that piece out and say, here, this is what
Yeah.
you should use.
Okay.
I think we need to massage it a little bit to make it.
And you're talking about that full report.
Right,
Yeah.
well, section 4 of that,
Oh,
right,
it's like
so-
section, page 45 or something like that, it starts
Yeah.
on. And there's a couple flow charts in there, and it's, I think that the data's good, I just think we need to make it more concise for, if we're gonna hand it as a piece of paper to
Yeah.
PDW and say, okay, we want you guys to follow this. If we give them 6 or 8 pages to follow, I just don't think it's gonna work that well.
so the last document was called a policy, which typically doesn't have implementation details to it. Policies usually
Right.
say, you'll do this, we'll always use red flowers on the boardwalk or something, and then the lawn care people figure out how to make sure there's always red flowers there.
Right.
So we're suggesting, should we suggest a few policy-type thoughts and then have a procedure or a process and call it a policy and procedure document? Or a process document or something? Do we want to leave out the policy part of it? I'm just throwing out
Yeah.
questions.
No, it's a good point.
Okay.
I don't know if we're making a distinction that no one else is gonna make, I don't know.
All right,
We have a policy and a procedure, but,
okay.
Some of the issue we're having now is, I know that some of the town departments are still doing mitigation efforts now.
Yeah,
And I've only finding out about them because, I've talked to so many people right now, they're saying, hey, what's going on over here? I don't know, what?
yeah, right.
Oh, okay, yeah, I go over there, oh, okay, oh, yeah, yeah. So,
Some examples you want to share in the open meeting?
So Handsome Drive is still an issue. They're still going up there on a regular basis
Okay.
and cleaning those culverts, that's fine, but to me, that's private property.
Yeah.
That's property that's owned by those group of folks up there that live there and own that common property. I don't know why PWD is doing that.
Yeah.
We've got some space over off of Mayflower Drive that's being cleaned on quasi-regularly. And that,
Where on Mayflower are they doing?
what?
Oh, yeah, I remember those.
So there's the pond that runs over beside Bishop Field,
Bishop Field, yeah,
the middle school.
Yeah.
There's a large
oh, yeah,
wetland in the middle there,
yeah.
and it's being plugged on a regular basis,
Mm-hmm.
and they clean it. And that puts a big flush of water down
Right, okay.
Guy and Madison and all the way out into Mitchell Woods.
So the beavers are plugging it?
I'm not so sure it's beavers or just
Just
other critters, and there's a lot of reeds, which is a lot of muskrat activity usually, but there are some beavers over there. There's chew over there, so there is other stuff going on over there. I don't know if it's only Beaver. That's unfortunately one of the areas that we've behind Mitchell Woods is one of the areas we have a level device.
Right.
So when we put big slugs of water down there, I mean, the street, you know, obviously contained behind my house is a stream. So when that changes by 7 or 8 inches in, you know, 3 or 4 minutes, I know something's been done. And it's pretty obvious. Once it gets out into the wetlands, there's a lot of reeds activity, so it's a very slow motion out into the wetlands. I don't, you know, that pond is 100+ acres or so. I don't really think that it's impacting the level. You know, I don't think it's flowing over the dam at the far side.
Right.
I hope it's not. I've not been able to get back there at the time to really time it to see what's going on, so I don't know if it is or not. But that's the kind of thing that if that was going over a dam, that would instill the beavers to be more active and try to overbuild that dam again. And it would kind of defeat the whole purpose of having a water level device near it. So that's the kind of thing we're trying to stop. And if Mayflower was one of the places that needed a device, then I'm not sure if that might be also private property. That may be in the kind of the same situation as Handsome. I don't know.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
But those are the kind of things that we're still seeing.
Yeah. Yeah. So that brings up a different idea, and that's honestly one of the reasons why I kind of want to move this thing forward, because I'm afraid that we didn't get the synergy with everybody involved in town that we had hoped to achieve when we put this together. Meaning that we got all, town manager and I, and department heads and a bunch of people all got in a room and said, yes, let's do a plan to tell us the right way to do this. Yes, this is 2013 we made that decision, and by the end of that year we were dealing with all kinds of people who didn't jump in behind it, and then later on we had other things, and we had Adam involved, and he's the right hand while the left hand of Public Works was doing their own thing. So
yeah.
And now Adam is gone, and I don't know if we have any champion within Public Works right now. So I thought driving this to a policy and a decision at the town level would help put this thing to bed potentially.
And having that chart, like you said, something they can look at visually without having to read through things I think that's an excellent idea.
Yep. Okay.
So how do we get to that end goal, to a town council meeting and a decision? I know that you're busy.
Well, yeah, yes, I am, but I can keep working on that.
Okay.
And I've been the most involved with it. It seems kind of silly to try to get someone else up to speed and doing it right now, so I'll pursue that.
Right. I'd like to target a meeting of the town council at the end of October.
Okay.
Because that gets us in there just before budget season gets going. At that point, department heads are formulating their budgets. They've probably already gotten input from their manager as to what's going on. But we'll have preliminary stuff done early October anyway, so they'll get a whiff of what we're up to. Of course, we're a public meeting, so. But that means we really need to be in a review process, probably at least sent out for around September.
Right, at least a month before. Yeah.
Does that sound doable?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sure Mike will help you if he needs to.
Just let me know.
Yep.
Well, that brings up another point. We were trying to piggyback some of the work that we wanted to get done this year with town. That I thought we had that going in the right direction. It doesn't seem like it's going to work, but do we still want to push forward and do? We had two. I have to go back and look them up now, but we had 2 locations that we wanted to do.
As far as I know, we sat here and all said we're doing what we're doing, right?
Yep. Okay.
If you think we need another vote on it,
no, I know. Well, we talked about it, but we talked also about trying to do it in conjunction with the town. We have prices with them. I mean, I don't think they're really going to change that dramatically. If we save ourselves $50, $60 on an install because we did 4 at a time versus 2.
So why don't we get a quote and bring it up at the July meeting? Okay, I think we're we're okay if we wait.
Well,
we don't have
actual quotes for the space.
Yep.
He gave us, he's only put in a couple that have exceeded his quote, and he said those were out in the Midwest where,
Yep.
they said, oh yeah, the little stream, he goes out there and, his idea of a little stream and their idea of a little stream were two very different
Right.
items. So he said there was a couple times where I got, a little overzealous with my quotes, but the things that we've seen, because he saw a number of our sites, and only installed 4, so
Yeah.
he's familiar with what we're looking for, and he feels comfortable with his quote. So
Yeah.
we can have him come back and do a quote, or we can have him come here and start, because he's going to probably charge us to come down and just look at him.
Okay.
It's he's coming from South Shore somewhere.
Right. You're right.
Yeah.
I think it would be a good idea for us to do a vote against a
Okay.
dollar number, whether we create a not to exceed or we create a. Okay.
Yeah.
What is he installing? What do you?
The leveling devices. Just he's more of the same leveling devices that he's already put in.
So, and I believe we were already under contract for maintenance. Right?
Yes, we are. And he's already been out here. He's already been out here once this year,
Yeah.
the beginning of the season, to look at this, and had no issues with it. They seemed to survive pretty well. He was happy with them.
Yeah, I thought they survived pretty well as well.
Especially considering the amount of ice in Mitchell Woods. There was a lot of ice
Mm-hmm.
moving. It broke up quick, and there was some big chunks, so it survived well out there too.
Mm-hmm. Good. Are you familiar with what we're talking about, Christy?
I'm not.
Okay, so last year we had water leveling devices or water level control devices installed around our beaver dams.
Mhm.
What that essentially means is we placed a pipe in the dam, an outlet pipe, with the inlet much further in the pond, below the water. The height of that placement of that pipe dictates the overall level of the water body. So we determined what water height we wanted to maintain. This gentleman came in, installed the pipe in the dam, and then 15 feet back he had an inlet which was caged in so it couldn't be blocked.
Mm-hmm.
And the outlet pushes water outside on the other side of the dam, so beavers aren't apt to close it off. They're looking, when they hear water movement, they want to block they want to block the inlet, not the outlet side, because the inlet they know will stop the water from going out. That's why they block the inside of a dam, never the outside of a dam. Okay, so we've been able. They call them beaver deceivers, and we've been able to deceive the beavers and control our water levels. A couple of our areas we worked on last year were areas where neighborhoods were being impacted by the water levels of these ponds going up and down.
Mm-hmm.
At one point we had water going into people's backyards and potentially causing issues with their septic systems and stuff like that. And then we had another area here in the middle of town where it was really making a one woman's property in particular very unusable right near her driveway. So I think what we've seen is one of them that you probably won't really notice, but you're probably familiar with the area, is on Natticook Road where Greens Pond, the dirt road, comes in. There's
I've seen some
Right.
devices out there and
yeah,
wasn't sure what
so
they were.
the town of
The
Dun-
latest one is
is the one that's working. So if you look at the latest one, it has no top on it, but it's a ring. It's been mudded all the way around it because the
Okay.
beavers have thought that's how they could control it, but the pipe is actually inside the ring,
Yeah.
and all their mudding made no difference at all.
Yeah.
And the actual inlet is out in the middle of the pond, and we've been able to maintain the water flow so that it flows through under the road. It's not, the pipe that goes under the road used to periodically get clogged by sticks and branches. That's not happening anymore, so there's no maintenance of that required.
Yeah.
And the water level altogether stays where it needs to be in order to not impact anyone else. If the water never goes up over the road anymore, nothing like that.
That's
So,
great.
so we did
I have
4
seen
devices.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what it does. That's the inlet side, so they can
Wow.
dam all they want, and
Yep.
then that sits out in the stream. Water rises and it comes through, and they just dam up all around the outside of this, and the water still flows through.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
So it's pretty clever. It's simple technology, and it avoids Public Works from having to go out and clean out all these
Right.
covers that they used to put on the
Repetitively.
holes.
Right,
mean,
weekly.
They
So
go
how
every.
many of those do we have in town?
We have 4 now, right?
Yeah.
2 in one location and 2 other locations.
Hmm.
We have a couple lined up for next year.
Yeah, well, that's
We
what
had
we're
a couple lined up for this year. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that
Right.
already is next year.
So
Thanks for showing me that. That's
Yeah.
pretty neat.
So Yeah, do you
I-
probably don't have a
she
copy of the
doesn't-
final report either,
No.
which
no.
would explain a lot of this as
Mhm.
well.
You have a
We-
thumb drive?
Not with me, I don't.
Okay. So can you, or do you want
Yeah.
me to do that?
Yeah, I can, we can get a,
Yeah,
Copy,
if,
yeah.
soon I want to post it online anyways.
That's the Beaver management report
Beaver,
you're talking
yes.
about?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah, so it'll talk about
well,
a
so
lot of things.
this is the final draft version.
Yeah.
So barring any comments that we have, GZA will release this to us as the final.
Mhm.
So that's kind of up to us when this gets posted as the final plan.
I thought we were at final stage
Okay.
at this point.
All right.
Anyone have any other comments?
Yeah, I mean, I gave this to everyone and said, if you have some
Yes.
comments, let me know, and we can
Really thorough.
include it now, or we can say, okay, that's Rev 1,
Yeah, I think
put
we're
it out,
there.
and then say, now, we're good to go. Okay.
Okay.
That's easy.
So if you get into reading this, you'll see that GCA did an assessment of over the whole town, they wanted to create a model for us to help us predict where we may have issues based on certain conditions. And so they developed a model based on habitats and other things, and where we would likely have issues with beavers and water levels and things like that. And it turns out when they ran their model that pretty much every one of our problem areas showed up on their model. And we used our own data to validate the model. And so now what's nice about that is if there's a proposed development in town, we can use this model and say, well, if you're going to put homes here, this is where you could expect to potentially have problems.
Mhm.
Whether they're happening now or not, we don't know, but we'll know that the conditions are that way. And that worked out. I mean, it was really cool how that just lined right up. And all their data went into a GIS system, so now we can make it available on the town's GIS system. So the information is readily available to anyone who can just point and click and go through. But we can also use it to see how changing or impacting one of the problem areas could impact the others, because you can see now how they all work together
Mhm.
across, streams and whatever else as well. So hopefully we can predict, like if we fix one spot, does that create a problem somewhere else or not, or maybe it
Mhm.
makes this better. So yeah.
Thank you for bringing me up to speed on
Yeah.
that.
So it turns out a lot of the devices that we're suggesting need to be installed, or activities that we think need to be done, are on town-owned properties as opposed to commission-owned or managed properties. And we made a decision last November to let the town pay for their areas and we would cover ours. And I don't think we got enough traction this year with some changes in the town staff to actually see them implement, which unfortunately means that they're sending crews out every week or two to maintain the way they used to maintain, which they wouldn't have to be doing right now. So is that efficient, or is that a good use of taxpayer dollars? I'll leave that for the reader to decide. So I think we need to push that button. That's hence why I'm thinking we need to do this by October, so we don't let yet another year go by.
Because I did have a conversation with Matt Chevernell too, and they are interested in finding out about the school portion over there, on
Lions Road?
Lions Road.
Yeah.
I won't say Mass Road, it's not right, on Lions Road. He wasn't aware that was that much of an issue, and didn't realize how much they were cleaning it, so he does want to find out about that.
Yep.
So I said when we have the guy in town, he can go look at it and make a proper assessment, because Matt doesn't want to use just he needs a real quote. He doesn't want
Right.
to work with a thing, so.
Yeah. So
Well, I can contact Mike and then have him find out what his schedule's like.
So what we also chose to do was to enter into a maintenance agreement with the gentleman who installed them, where he comes out 4 times a year, is it, or 3 times a year?
Twice a year. I
Twice a
think.
year,
Yeah.
okay, so,
Spring
and does an
fall,
inspection, and he warranties non-vandal, things need to be fixed that weren't done by vandalism or something like that, so if one of the pipes starts to come apart, he'll fix that, and so, which means that we don't have to have town staff waiting out in the middle of water and playing with all this stuff. They could be doing things that they're more used to doing, so.
Yeah. And the maintenance agreement is $200.
Yeah.
And it's far cheaper than us sending our crews out.
Right.
So,
I imagine.
Yeah, when you,
and he trains anyone who wants to come watch. He said he'll train them how to put them in and make them. So,
Yeah.
again, they're pretty basic technology.
yeah, and when you look at the loaded rates for our employees, which covers benefits as well as vehicle costs and maintenance and all that, it can be expensive to send a couple of
Yeah.
people out for a couple hours every other week.
Mhm.
It adds up. So, all right. Now that you and anyone watching is up to speed now? All right, good. So let us know, certainly by the August meeting, what you need help with,
Yep.
if you think you need help, okay? If you want people to review things early, that works for me.
Okay.
Okay, right?
Right.
Anything else on this item? All right, so let's move to new business. Next, properties to more formally manage. In my zeal to keep us moving forward, I just wanted to throw out some ideas so that way we're not just thinking about the old things we've been looking at. I know while Lauren was more active with us, we went through and talked about what a property management plan should look like. I think we decided no matter what, that there was a forest component to our plans. And I was thinking that it might be good if we were thinking one or two of our properties would be the next ones we might want to have a more formal plan for, to maybe we can at least kick off our forester and get some things going, because those plans take time. And if we can have him collect data and work on summarizing it on the off-season, we will have something to work with when we're ready to work on it. So, go ahead.
Well, I got 2 points of view on that. One, I was like, I would love to do it on like some of the small properties, had low-hanging fruit, so we can get them done. But if we're gonna, on the flip side, if we're gonna have the forester come and do it, I'd almost like to grab some of the bigger properties, because they're gonna be able to go in there and really get, see a lot more than maybe we will,
Yeah.
and things like that. So when you look at items like Fields Farm, some of the larger properties that have a lot of interest to us, those are the ones I think probably, if we're gonna bring a forester in, I'd like to focus on, because we, Gilmore Hill by default is probably gonna get a fairly decent plan now.
Right.
So, and when we can update Horse Hill with some of the information that we get too, so those are just, at least the odd tapes would be good.
Anyone else have any other thoughts? I don't want to drive the commission if we're not ready to move at 80 miles an hour, or whatever.
Well, when you say like formally managed, do you mean setting up subcommittee?
We could decide to go that far, or we may decide we don't want to. Like Fields Farm, we may not be at that point. We may just want to understand what we have, and then leave that.
Yeah, because some of those properties too are, the management techniques are gonna be decreed by deed. I mean, if you have a space that's not, you can go walk around in there, but you can't build trails, you can't do anything, okay, well, our active management is gonna be limited.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Right.
So,
go ahead.
Gilmore's adjacent to Horse Hill.
Almost.
Almost.
They don't touch.
Yeah.
It's separated by Greens Pond Road.
Are there any limitations on that property, or
Yes.
there are?
Yeah, there's some deed restrictions on that property. Yeah. I don't believe there's hunting or discharging of firearms on that property.
But
There's no motorized, I think, right?
I'm not
But
sure about that. I don't think, I think it allows motorized.
as far as a plan, like a forestry plan,
There's a 3-pager that was done by John Newt about 20 years ago. So,
Needs to be updated.
yeah. And then beyond that in the deed, there is nothing else really to speak of, except for what you might find at the kiosk. So,
Not
So,
much.
but I was thinking, Wasserman Conservation Area, especially because
Yep.
that's 80 acres of land, plus we bought an adjoining 20-something acre parcel. So now we've got 100 acres out there. Each one of those parcels have a different set of rules, 80 acres, the 80 acres of Wasserman Conservation Area has a very strict deed restrictions on it because it's LSIP money that was involved. But the two parcels touch, we have trails that cross. We probably should be looking at that as one parcel. I've often thought that we should do forestry out there because after some of the storms we had a few years ago, there's a lot of blowdown. But having hiked it with some of you to do our thing, which I will get our update done up to Steve Walker. It's in process. But having been out there, I'm not sure there's any place where we really want to do forestry work. We may want to do some cleanup, but do we want to bring in a crew and knock down a bunch of trees? I don't know. We may feel there's a need for a wildlife opening at some point to do something, but I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, because that's a space that is getting actively used.
Right.
It might be worthwhile to go in and have a little bit more active plan in there.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice to know if we had a bunch of black gum trees out there in a particular area, because that's a unusual tree, and we may want to change where we're routing trails because of something that gets found. Don't know. So, and then the other parcel that we just bought, I don't believe that's been forested in quite a while. There may be opportunities there to do forestry which could generate some revenue, which could help us to better manage the property. Don't know.
Because Wasserman itself does have, it's not a bad invasive, but it's an invasive nonetheless, is that burning bush.
Right.
I mean, that's a huge grove.
Yes.
Burning bush. You saw that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, we can have the forester's professional assessment done.
Right.
Yeah. That's kind of what I was thinking. Let's find out what the different tree stands are. What type of trees do we have? And that'll be a good reference document to know. So, and then, we don't have to act on it. As soon as we get it, we can choose to wait, because it's not going to change that quickly.
Yep.
So,
I mean, I think we did a good job with the Greater Woods plan. It's the layout of it is such that, I think it's almost, we could kind of use it as a template. It was put together across a couple different commissions and a bunch of different people, so it had a lot of eyes on it.
Yep.
So that might be worthwhile I could scrape all the most of the information out of it, leave a little paragraph in each one so people have an idea what's there, and just start using it as a template.
yeah, so when the last forestry plan work that was done by Mr. Johnson for Bay State. Was it Dave or Mike? I forget.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know I shouldn't have said anything, right?
No, I think you're right. I think it's Johnson. I think you're right.
Yeah. So what he did is he mapped out on the property the different, what he calls stands, which are unique or groups of trees that have the same characteristics, like a stand of oak trees. He described what the monetary value of the stand was, in case we're interested in that, as well as if there are any concerns about the stand, so we would know about it, because we have some on Greater Woods where there's no understory. Everything is so grown in that basically it's a forest that's going to die at some point because it's not furthering the growth of other stuff. So I was thinking it might be good to have them do that same kind of a model study, and then we can choose to incorporate it into our own management plan after that, like we did with Greater Woods. I thought that worked effectively.
Yep.
I don't know what you all think, but so this would not be the ultimate management plan. This would just be a piece of that plan done by a professional that we would need anyways, I think.
Kind of an information gathering.
Right.
Yeah, it's so we know,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But we haven't done a number of our properties there. The concern I have with Fields Farm is as those of you know, when the Timasian property was sold, there's a development going on. There was an agreement, or a discussion, I should say, that a portion of that common land would become part of the town, whether it's by easement or donation. I'd like to see that process come to completion before we do Fields Farm, so that way we do everything involved. You know what I mean?
When the Wasserman property was donated, that was donated, right?
No.
The Wasserman family?
No.
It was sold.
It was sold
Okay, so
at a favorable price. Yeah. It was sold for millions of dollars. I mean, You
That's
pay,
right.
you
That's
pay for
right, I
that through your
remember that now.
taxes from 1990
Yeah, I
to
remember that.
19,
I
to
remember that now.
2005 or something like
Yeah.
that, so.
Yeah.
So would you like me to ask our forester to give us a quote on what a appropriate forest plan would be for Wasserman, for Fields Farm? What do you think?
Washington sounds
Wa-
good.
Wash, yeah, we can start with Wasserman. That's one that we all, for the most part, know. It's
Okay.
easy. It's easy for people to walk, and might be a good training exercise.
Okay. So Wasserman Conservation with our abutting property?
Yes.
Right, we'll just get an idea of what we think the cost is gonna be, and at our next meeting, we can decide whether we wanna move forward, so, okay. Any of our other parcels, just throwing it out there, do we wanna look at Riverside? I'm not sure if all of you are familiar with Riverside.
What is Riverside?
So, on
Is that
Amherst, on Amherst Road, between Burger King and Horse Hill, probably much closer to Horse Hill, there's a street called Riverside, as well as a street called Davidson Ave. It's, behind that, we own a piece of common land. It's probably, I don't know if I have to guess, it's what, 10 acres or something like that, maybe? It abuts the Sauhegan River, and it comes up into those neighborhoods in two little spots. It has two little 50-foot right-of-ways.
Christy, do you have teenagers?
Not yet, they're getting there.
They probably know where it is.
Oh.
The party spot?
Yeah.
It's no longer the power lines off of Back River.
No,
Road,
it goes
right?
out to the river.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Like a Tarzan swing.
they could,
There was a couple of years ago, I know the number of years ago, there was a swing out on the one end of it. I don't know if it's.
yeah, all right. So just, that's another one of our, it's not a really big property of ours, but just want to
It's-
throw it out there.
It's beautiful.
Hmm.
And if you ever get a chance to like run a kayak down through there, I mean, you go around the Indian ledges and all like that. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It
But-
is. I've been down there.
So Simon, who used to be part of our commission, he lives in that neighborhood, and that's what got him interested in the commission, because he knew we owned that parcel. So, yeah. All right, well, I'm just throwing it out there to look at, but, yeah, let me see what Mike has to say about the
Yeah,
big parcel.
that's a good portion, because as a lot of people that don't know that even exists.
I mean, is that like a possible place for like
Well, there's
boat access? Like
There's a little bit of there's like a
canoe
cul-de-sac down there, but
access path.
that's like, we're telling people to park in the end of BB Lane. It's that type of cul-de-sac. It's like, well, it's
Yeah.
or going into the Greater Woods Outdoor Education Center. You can get in there from the end of Bambi Trail. It's a cul-de-sac, but it's not really parking. You can fit like 3 or 4 cars there, but then you're blocking someone's driveway. But any more than that. So
Brian Johnson.
Brian Johnson. Yep.
Ding.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's him.
So, okay, that's kind of what I wanted to see, because I figure if we don't feed our pipeline of activities,
Yep.
we could always let it go dry, but
No.
that way, so. And then we still have chapter 111 out there. At some point, we'll have to tackle that beast. I can tell you more about that, Christie, at some point, what I mean by that, so. Okay, that's all I have for next properties. The next item, Pedestrian Bridge at Wasserman Conservation Area. Matt had asked me to put this on the agenda, hoping that he'd have information, and he doesn't.
Okay.
And so when we were out on the conservation area, Matt had suggested a place for a pedestrian bridge to be included in part of the trail system. Coming out of Natticook Lake, there's a stream that goes out of it that eventually dumps into Greens Pond, or Green Pond is really what it's called, right? It's Greens Pond Road, but it's Green Pond.
Oh.
Okay? To be technically accurate. So along that stream, there's trails, and people have gone across it, and they, you kind of do a rock jump, so it'd be appropriate to,
Thanks.
probably be appropriate to do a pedestrian bridge like we've done on our other trail systems.
Okay, so a pedestrian bridge is possibly like logs with boards across it type of,
Correct, right, yeah.
something you see on a
about
trail.
Right.
Something about
Okay.
3 feet wide that you could
Okay.
take a bicycle across, a horse potentially.
Yeah.
But
Not an
we try to make them a little narrower than an ATV.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, and ATVs are not allowed on that property. But if there's no one to enforce the law, it's not always followed. So Matt had hoped to have details so that we could actually take a review of the cost and approve it, but we don't have that yet, so that'll wait till the next meeting.
But that bridge is not gonna be really anything bigger than anything we've built in the past, so I don't expect it to be much of an issue.
Yeah, I don't either. So. Okay, so that takes us to other business. So what I wanted to do was alert everyone that last year, early September, we treated for invasive species on property that we own at Brookside Drive. This is a parcel that's would have been considered a house lot parcel, but yet there's too much wetlands on it. It's right in the middle of our neighborhood, and we have knotweed and a bunch of other things that were impacting adjacent parcels as well as our own. And we were concerned that the knotweed was getting into Babusick Brook and following down the brook and creating these little colonies of knotweed further down. So we did some spraying. We also sprayed behind the property owners that's having the biggest problem because the knotweed is actually getting into her retaining wall, which is saving her house from flowing into the wetland and all that too. So, and popping boards on her deck and everything else. So it was pretty nasty. Stuff is pretty nasty. So it didn't quite work. So I did have an email conversation with Mike Powers about it after I went out and took a look at it. His report to me is I stopped by the Brookside Drive project last week. It looks like quite a bit of the knotweed was controlled, but I was hoping for a little more mortality than what had occurred. Knotweed is pretty tough to kill, and the site could definitely use some follow-up work. And then he wants to know if we could meet and discuss it further. I tried to set up a day with him. It doesn't work. Is anyone available on the 23rd to meet? You actually saw it.
Yes, I saw
right?
this.
So you're familiar with the site. Would you be available on the 23rd to meet with Mike?
What the day of the week is that?
That's like a Tuesday.
It is a Tuesday.
Yeah.
So what I can do is have you and Mike get together and what we want to find out
We'll
from.
go back to that same place.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what we'd like to do is to get his feeling for what it's going to take to fix it. Is it one more application? When is the application? When should we do it? Because if you recall last year, we actually did a public hearing and invited the neighborhood in. I'm not sure we need to have an actual public hearing, but we certainly should let them know that we're considering doing it.
We had a few folks over there that really did need to know. We had a woman with some pretty severe allergies.
Yeah.
And we got two beekeepers over there. So.
Right.
Do you have the address?
So we're looking at 10 Brookside Drive, I believe. So what I was hoping then, Mike, is if you could meet with Mike Powers and get a feel for what he's able to do and when and what is appropriate. Do we have a warranty? Right?
I don't think he's going to warranty that. But.
Well, you might as well ask the question, right? You know,
Well, that's interesting. If he was expecting a lot higher mortality rate, so it obviously didn't meet his expectations either.
Right.
So
right.
There might be some.
Maybe some wiggle room there. Okay. We knew it wouldn't be perfect the first time. We all knew that.
Yeah, but we were expecting to have a little bit of follow up, not to have to go in there and do another full spray.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So what complicates this parcel today, though, is the storm we had in last October, the big snowstorm that came in, or the Thanksgiving storm, whatever that. I think there was a Thanksgiving storm, right? Or a Halloween storm.
Yeah, no, I think Thanksgiving. You're right.
Yeah.
I think it was Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was Thanksgiving.
A couple of large trees came down on the parcel. It looks like someone cut them in order to make them not be damaging anything, but the remnants of those trees are in the way. Plus, as if you recall, the neighborhood was using it as a dumping ground.
Yeah.
Well, pallets are still out there because they could never figure out who owned them, and no one took their pallets out. And a whole bunch of brick is still out there as well. So we need to understand how that may impact what Mike needs to do. So do we need to do some preliminary work before he can come back in and be effective? You know what I mean?
Yep.
Because at that point, we'll have to discuss how we do that, whether,
Well,
yeah.
Is, the wood has only been out there since Thanksgiving? Last Thanksgiving? Cut?
The trees?
Yeah, cut?
Yeah, no, not all cut. No, we're talking large trees, still
Well,
just cut and pushed over and out of the way.
so, do we have the ability to let people know it's there? Because it will go. I mean, you look at PWD, they cut trees on the side of the road and they stack up on the side of the road and they leave it.
Depends if they're a hardwood or softwood.
Oh, it's a hardwood.
Yeah, if they're
It
hardwood.
will go.
Yeah.
You
Right.
can sell, you can get rid of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not, if we let people know it's there, it will go.
Right.
Yeah.
The
But-
PSNA, or whoever the hell they're called now, came down and cut some trees down because they're putting up another pole. And my neighbor she was like, oh, they left the tree right, and I was like, put a sign out there, free wood. And it was gone that afternoon.
Yeah.
I mean, it will go.
Yeah.
So we just need to let people know it's there. And
Yeah, so I think it needs to be prepared to be removed, because it's not ready yet.
yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. But so we'd have to allow someone to go out there and on our property and cut.
The trouble is that you're in the wetland, so I'm not sure you want to be
Okay.
letting anyone in with their own chainsaw dumping
Yep.
fluids in the wetland, okay?
Okay.
So we have to be careful about that, all right? That's the constraint, I believe. So that's something, if you could talk to Mike about what would be the best
Points,
way to
not what
manage
was
that,
Okay.
okay?
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Why couldn't this happen when we had the drought going?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I honestly, it impacts the ability of the sewer folks to manage the stormwater. So it may be something that the town just needs to take care of, okay? Because the other reason why that parcel exists is all the stormwater collected in that neighborhood and the neighborhood behind it all channels through into a big pipe that dumps out on our property, which then eventually leads into Babusick Brook. We wouldn't do drainage that way today, but that's the way it was done in 1970. So,
Well, I know PWD has the ability to pull some of those logs, because during the Meadowood Pond install of the level device, they went out and pulled out of the water some logs that were blocking the ability to have that pipe come up. So
yeah, okay.
they do have the ability to get that stuff out
I
of there.
suspect they could,
Yeah.
yeah. So we may be able to just utilize that, so.
Okay.
But we need to do an assessment as to what's feasible and what we should do, and then go from there, so. So if you don't mind, I will put you and Mike in contact with each
Yeah.
other, and if you could, kind of get a good look at it.
Sure.
Okay?
Yep.
Great,
So you'll email me or something.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. Anyone have any other questions about this item before I move on?
It's a Tuesday, right?
Yeah, it's a Tuesday, yeah.
Yeah, it'll have to be a certain time.
Yeah, or you can work out something
Yeah,
else.
Work out. Yeah,
I-
we'll,
I
we'll,
s-
work it, we'll work it out.
I suggested a day that worked for me, and it didn't
Yeah.
work for him, so. And right now,
Yeah, we'll work it out.
things are less busy at work, but because the 4th of July is coming up, and I want to get things done so I can take a vacation.
Mhm.
I'd rather be in work as opposed to outside of work, so. All right. So our July meeting is called our annual meeting. It's where we elect our chair and vice chair every year. I'm certainly happy to entertain other people to sit right here.
And I don't think there'll be
Yeah, I don't
any,
think we're gonna get any takers.
Well, that's on the floor there.
Yeah, I know, right?
It's also the meeting where we have an opportunity, we can do this at any meeting, but we have an opportunity every year to at least look at our bylaws. Our bylaws are posted on our website, the town website. So if you go to the Conservation Commission page on the town website, you can find the bylaws. I don't think we've changed them in a couple of years, but I would recommend that all of you take a look at the bylaws before the meeting and see if you suggest any changes or additions or updates. That way we can handle those at that meeting. It's also the meeting that I would like to use, and what we've decided to use to appoint members to our subcommittees. So I know myself, Cindy, and Gage have a homework assignment to see who on our respective subcommittees is interested in being reappointed. We three are the ex officio members of the three subcommittees. I cover Wildcat Falls, you cover Horse Hill, and you cover Greater Woods. So if you could make sure that you have input from the people who are up for reappointment, whether they choose to be or not. Okay. So that way, when we come to the July meeting, we can make those appointments if we're ready to do that, so. Right, as well as anyone watching, if you're interested in one of those subcommittees, if you're an alternate on one of those subcommittees and want to be a full-time member, throw that out there, okay? Some people do swaps.
You're here every Monday with us anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Watch out, that's how he got me.
It worked.
Yeah, okay. So that's the intent of our July meeting. Usually that doesn't take more than a half an hour to cover, and then we can do any projects or anything else we want to do. And of course, we want to pick up, certainly with our net activities and other stuff like that on our July, which is our only July meeting. So, all right. Anyone have anything else they'd like to cover at that meeting? Just so I could throw it in the agenda. And a reminder, it is the 20th of July. So, okay. Update on gates for South Greater Road. Not so much. I had it on my agenda to take care of, and I don't have something I want to present, but I plan on doing that, because what I'd like to do is show you all before I bring it to the town council. So I'm going to delay that, a meeting. So.
If anyone gets a chance to use the Conservation Drive entrance to Greater Woods, Matt's first endeavor in engraving on a board, routing on a board, he did a nice job.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, you should take a look at it. If you
Go look at the kiosk, he did a nice job.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
So do you know where Conservation Drive is? It's off of, is it off of Marty?
It's off of Marty, which is, what the heck is that name of that street?
So you take a,
Yeah, it meets up with
there's like one other turn
Is it
there. I can't
Independence?
remember the name of the street.
Independence. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, I think it is.
Independence Road, yeah, Independence Drive.
Independence to.
So if you were
Marty to
heading
Independence to
Babusick Lake Road this way, past the middle school lights, go past then Bean Road, which is on your right, and continue on Babusick Lake Road. Before you go up a big hill, there is what, Great Stone on one side,
Goes
Okay.
off to the right.
and Marty's on the left. Turn down Marty, take your first right, follow that up and around, and then it's a left, and that's called Conservation
Conservation
Drive.
Drive.
Takes you up a big hill, and then down the other side of it is where ends in a cul-de-sac where we have our access point into Greater Woods from that side.
Okay.
There's a kiosk there. You can park there. There's also a gate there. So, and it has the access and maintenance road that we put in near the Red Maple Trail on that side of it. So,
It's a big cul-de-sac.
yeah, it is. Yeah. So, it's a very wide there. So it's a nice, easy walk down in case you want to go out, adventure some other places. So. Okay, so something that came out of the blue that I wasn't anticipating is a potential joint meeting with the planning board. Apparently, our vice chair is having some discussions with maybe having a meeting with us and the planning board together to talk about areas of joint concern. And one of the items that came out is Pete Gagnon, who used to be a full-time member of the planning board, has been doing some work on soils and what soils mean and how they're classified, and maybe impacts to the law.
You have that nursery?
Excuse me?
Does he run that little?
Yep, he runs the nursery at the end of Joppa Road. Yeah. So I don't have I know I have it. So the question is to all of you. This would give us a third meeting in August if we wanted to do it, because we meet on the 3rd of August, which is our first meeting, the first Monday in August. This is the first Tuesday in August. We could decide to have a joint meeting with the planning board and then have our own meeting and not have one on the 3rd. We could move the date a day. I suspect that we have a number of items that we would talk about which would take an hour or more of our time. So I'm not sure how things are. So any thoughts on meeting on the 3rd and the 4th, the first week of August? Does anyone have any concerns?
Well, I was thinking that time frame wise, we might need to meet regarding the scoping meeting
Yeah,
thing. So I don't know. I mean,
right.
I'd be willing to meet twice if necessary.
Okay.
Seems like we'll have to.
Yeah, so what I thought I would do, I would certainly suggest that if we decide to do the 4th, that I let it be a planning board meeting like this is going to be. So, one, I don't have to do an agenda, and I don't have to do minutes.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah, that's good.
We can have our joint discussion.
Yes, all go as members of the public.
Yeah, that's right.
And what I wanted to suggest that we cover beyond soils is fertilizers and de-icing compounds and landscaping things that are important to us that we look
Yeah.
at. And just, we can have, a discussion back and forth. Does that sound appropriate? Any other
Mhm.
items? If you think of any other, send me an email. Says, Tim, I thought about this, and I can throw it in the mix, and we can see where myself and Chairman Bob Best, work it out. So, okay. So let me know, but I will continue to move it forward, and I'll keep you all updated as events change or mature. So, okay. Next on the agenda is an update on our environmental impacts that we're having on Horse Hill. I have some scribble notes, and that's exactly what they are.
Yeah, really.
Scribble notes. So yeah, I
At
didn't.
least
I
it's
didn't.
Not on a napkin.
I didn't. I didn't transcribe them. Sometimes I'm a little more better organized, but so. Whoops. Ooh. Still there. So Jeff says that they're with the biologist. They're doing their plant survey still. They've been doing some bird surveys. They've been capturing sounds of birds, as well as creating calls to see who answers back.
Fun.
Because sometimes not all birds will let you know they're there unless you give them a reason to let you know they're there. So,
Did you get a chance to ask him about we had a rare species of plant out there. Has he found it?
yes, the ones that we're most concerned about on that other property, yes.
Well, on the other property? We have them on ours.
Yes, on our property,
Okay.
sorry, yeah.
Right.
Yep. So,
One's up off on the right up there when you walk in. Right?
I don't get into details with them like that, so, so we're not talking past each other, you may want to make sure you send them an email, and, okay? All right? Just to be sure.
Yep.
Okay. He has been tracking and noting where he's finding nesting turtles of both the rare and threatened types. He has successfully tagged and put transmitters on the turtles of interest. So he's getting an idea of where they're nesting and where they're moving and stuff like that. So that way we'll understand what that is. Both male and females, so of 2 different species. So that's good. He says the transmitters will last quite a while, actually, if they leave them on. While as in up to 3 years, if we want to do that. So it's.
Does that come back as? Does he get that back as GIS data? Type.
I don't know the specifics.
That would be interesting to capture for a while.
So so they have a transmitter on them. So then you have to go out and you have to locate. So he is doing locations of where he's finding them when they're going out to look for
Right.
them. And he says that he's been utilizing specific times during the day when he believes it's appropriate to be going looking for them. The middle of the day, if they're basking on a log, it's pretty boring.
Right, yeah.
But if it's a time when they're known to be moving and stuff like that, that's when you want to know what's going on. So
Blazing speed.
yeah.
That's true. Those are the best commercials ever. Those are the funniest ones ever. It's a rocket.
He also believes with the study work and the observations they're making that he can scientifically make an estimate as to the density of these critters that we have out there. So not just say I found 2 or I found 5. He can say using this data and using this scientific method, you can approximate that you potentially have this many.
Good.
So he says he's using real science, which is what we want, because that could be helpful. What else do I have? So he's also starting to put together information about some research that he's doing in order to better understand what the impacts would happen with certain species based on certain things that he knows would happen if the pipeline was to go in, such as what are the impacts to silt fencing that would be put up. A silt fence is to prevent runoff making it into bad spaces, but it also becomes an impenetrable wall to a turtle who can't get through it. So if you put a silt fence right across his normal path from point A to point B, he now can't get to point B. So, as well as other amphibians and other critters and stuff like that. So he's putting together information that he's found, as well as he's looking at past practices of construction that have been used at pipelines and things like that, so he can better hone the impacts that he's looking for. So that's both during construction as well as the afterwards. What does the permanent structures and things mean to the habitat? So he's also looking at chemicals that are used and what impacts that those could have to different habitats, wildlife, plants, and things like that too.
Chemicals during
construction, yeah.
Or not the defoliants afterwards.
Well, he says everything he's looking at is both construction and afterwards.
Okay.
So I asked him what he thought his timeline was for a draft and stuff like that. He says that he hopes to, by early July, have all his field work done. So him and the folks that he's contracted with, because he's using both interns, as we know, and he's using biologists, folks from Audubon, people who are familiar with the different specialties and stuff like that. He said we may be interested in doing some particular insect studies, but he's looking to see if he has enough information to let him believe that an insect of interest is potentially there, and he'll let us know. So he also looked into bat surveys because, I don't know if you recall, but Kinder Morgan was even thinking about doing bat surveys on our property, and he was looking at what the cost would be to do that. He came back to do an adequate study along at least the corridor area was a $6,000 to $7,000 adventure, because you have to collect sounds, you have to do observations, and then you have to find a way to differentiate bat A species from bat B species, and that requires someone with unique skills. So I left it that bat surveys.
Really good hearing, yeah.
Yeah. So I told him that I think at this point bat surveys are not on the table. That's something we want to do, but that I would bring it up with all of you, and we still have a window of opportunity. And we can hear what he comes out of his other work too, because he is out there at different times of the day, and he may actually be out there maybe not today because it's raining this hard, but he has been doing evenings as well as other times of the day to go after the types of critters that have different life cycles, because not everyone lives 9 to 5. Some of them are nocturnal and stuff like that as well. So I found that really reassuring when he told me that he's doing different times of the day and stuff like that. That lets me know he's being thorough, which is good news. So that's the latest update I have. He said if we knew that there were scoping meetings or other things going on where we needed specific information, that if we let him know that as soon as we know, that he could provide preliminary data as soon as we needed to do that. I told him right now his plan of finishing field work in early July and start putting it together so that we could get a draft in August was probably adequate for what our needs are. And until we find out otherwise, I'm going to let him march down that road. So he is also helping the town of Brookline as well with some of their activities, which he says is to our advantage because some of the things they need to learn about, we also want to learn about, and now he's able to utilize the funding from both sources to do what's best for both communities. So
good.
So we might actually get a little more out of it because of that. I do know another town inquired about his services, and he said he's flat out. And that's good to know too, because so that's the update that I have. Obviously, if any of you have any specific questions for Jeff, you're more than welcome to ask him. I'm sure he'd speak to any of you, so you don't have to necessarily throw me in the middle, but if you learn something, please share. So, and let's try not to pester him, because
He's got work to do.
yeah, got work to do, so. I only have one other item that's not on the agenda about the Horse Hill Nature Preserve parking lot. If you recall, a while ago, we talked about maybe expanding that parking lot and asking Kyle to take a look at it. Kyle went out and took a look at it, and he said that there's probably possibilities, but he believes a wetland scientist needs to be brought in, and the wetlands need to be delineated before he could make concrete recommendations on what to do. The town does use a couple of different people in the area for that, but that would be contracted work, and we'd have to decide on what that is. So my question to all of you is that something you want me to ask for quotes for?
I think so. If anyone ever, you go over there, that parking lot is, they're parking on the road.
Mm-hmm.
They're up and down the road. I mean, John's probably gonna start, charging admission on his side. They'll let him park in his driveway or something,
Mm-hmm.
But I think we need to do something over there.
Okay.
My opinion, but.
All right. So what I thought I would do is, since we don't really do this kind of work, is that I would work with Paul McCallie in the Finance Department to do an RFQ or RFP, a request for proposals to do a wetland study, wetland markings of that area, and be real specific about it. So, does that make sense? And then let's see what we get for a response, and then we can decide where to go from there.
And if we're gonna do that, we might as well, see if we can get, we're just over there doing vernal pool studies right now. Let's get the wetlands marked really well and make sure we get that as GIS data,
Now,
and we can verify what we have.
well, he's there. Is he qualified to take a look at that? Where the wetlands would start where they'd expand the parking lot?
Well, I think he could identify them, but I don't think he has a stamp that says I'm a wetland scientist and this is where they are.
And legally, we need that?
I think we do.
Especially if we're gonna be doing any kind of construction over there, I think that's probably a safe.
Right. Yeah. So. All right, so I will move that forward, so hopefully we can have that data done and maybe decide to do something this year or not, so I'll let the subcommittee know as well, or do you want, if you know there's a meeting coming up, you should let them know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, so that's all I have for other business. Anyone have anything else?
I do not.
All right, so that takes us to the minutes of June 1st. I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the minutes we approve them as corrected.
Second?
With amendments
With
or
amendments.
changes? Yeah.
Amendments.
So Gage moves the minutes with changes. And is there a second?
I'll second.
Oh,
Seconded by Mike. Sorry. What changes do you have?
I thought it was pretty good. There's one item that I think that, I'm sure that's what we said. I think maybe just, we might wanna make a couple changes to it so it's a little clearer. We were talking about the pavement on the property. There's one very visible parking lot, which is on Daniel Webster Highway, and then there's a parking lot up behind the building, and we don't really make any distinction on here. We just say the parking lot, and we don't make a good clear distinction as to what we're reviewing. So when he's talking about repaving the parking lot, he's talking about the lot up behind the building, which is where the parking is going to be,
Right.
because the whole front of that space that's paved and used to have people parking there, you cannot park there any longer. They don't allow that parking off the road. So it's a couple places in here that, I mean, this is what we said. I'm sure this is what we said. I'm not
It's
backing
just
up on
not
that.
clear.
But it's just not clear as to whether we're talking about the parking lot behind the building or the parking lot in front. So I don't know if we need to really make a distinction there or not.
So do you want to do that? So we could say like line 38, responded the existing rear parking lot? You want to be that?
Yep. That something like that would work. Yeah, and that would carry all the way down to line 43.
Okay, yeah.
So the rear parking lot is that preliminary discussion, and then the front parking lot, which is no longer used, is basically from line 45 down. Or line 45 down to a little ways down.
Okay.
On the first page.
Now,
Yeah, so how do we want to suggest to
So-
Dawn that she updates the minutes for that?
So on line 37,
Yeah.
existing rear parking lot,
Okay,
stripes.
so, yeah, so 38 also would say existing rear parking lot.
Yeah, we could do that.
And then 43 when the rear parking lot is repaved. Okay. So then line 54. I'm sorry, am I getting ahead of you?
No, I don't. Yeah, no, I just, because I just the front part of the property, I guess that's, people are gonna assume that the front part of the property is,
so when she was saying 54,
Question if the front paved
Yeah.
area.
yeah,
Mhm.
So you'd add the word front in front of paved.
yes.
yeah.
Okay, on line 54, yep. And that's being two places then.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah, I think that's all we need to.
I think that brings the point home.
Yep.
Okay,
That was really the only thing I had.
anyone have any other corrections or changes? All right, so all those in favor of the motion, respond by saying aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So I'll abstain, so that passes 4-0-1 with myself abstaining. Okay, that's easy. That brings us to public comment. Does the public wish to speak? Public is good. All right, that takes us to commissioner comments. I'll start on my right. Mike, any comments?
No further comments?
Okay. Christie, any comments,
No
general?
further comments, thank
All
you.
right.
I
Paige?
said one, that passed out that Beaver fact sheet the last meeting. I didn't know if anyone had any comments or questions about it. Things you wanna change?
I just found one typo. Oh, okay.
Of course you did.
Of course I did.
Of course you did.
And I was wondering if they could add a little paragraph to start, just to say like something small, but you know, to say that the beaver is a keystone species and how important it is. You know, it doesn't have to be big, but
Sure.
just a.
Would you do me a favor and just literally mark this up what you want and just,
Oh, okay.
just scan
send
it,
it to you.
yeah, scan it and send it to me, and I'll just send it right to Tracy.
Okay.
I'll put all the comments onto one sheet
Yeah.
and go from there.
Okay. Will do.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Anything else?
I'm good. Oh,
Right.
wait, congratulations to class of 2015, Mainland High School class 2015.
Oh.
Good luck.
Yeah.
That's right.
All right. So I only have one other comment. We don't meet again officially until the 20th of July, which means that in between now and then we'll have the happy birthday of our country. So hopefully everyone gets a chance to get out and remember what July 4th is all about when you're in between the hamburgers and everything else that happens, fireworks and all that. So because a lot of brave people have gone out and made sure that we can have those kinds of celebrations. So that's all I have. So next, I'll take a motion to go into non-public. I need you to read what's listed on the paper, and we need to do a roll call vote.
Sure. So, motion.
No, you got.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right, sorry, I didn't realize it was on there.
So motion to adjourn to non-public session per RSA 91-A:3 2D.
Mhm.
consideration of the acquisition, sale, or lease of real or personal property which, if discussed in public, would likely benefit a party or parties whose interests are adverse to those of the general community.
And?
Oh, and review of non-public minutes for April 6, 2015.
Okay. So instead of all those in favor, I need to poll every one of you, and you need to respond by saying yes or no. So, Christy?
Yes?
Okay. Cindy?
Yes.
Gage?
Yes.
Tim says yes. Mike?
Yes.
Okay, so that passes unanimously, 5-0, with all members responding affirmative.
There was kids in the audience in the gallery, fourth graders, because they introduced the bill, and this representative compared it to, basically said that he described what the hawk does, rips his guts out of its victims, which I thought was kind of funny. But with that said, he said this bird is better off being a mascot of Planned Parenthood. Okay, so it's not so